It's 5:47 in the morning, and your hands won't stop shaking. You're 22 years old, crammed into a metal box with 30 other men who smell like vomit and fear, and in exactly 13 minutes a whistle is going to blow. When it does, you'll have 8 seconds to make a choice. 8 seconds to decide if you're going to live or if you're going to die. No amount of training prepared you for this moment. Your drill sergeant back in Georgia told you to keep your head down and follow orders, but he never told you what to do when the ramp drops and you see what's waiting for you on that beach. Because here's the truth they don't put in the history books. World War II wasn't won by the bravest soldiers or the smartest strategists. It was survived by the luckiest. And right now, sitting in this landing craft with water sloshing at your boots and the taste of copper in your mouth, your luck just ran out. You think you'd survive? Let me show you exactly why you're wrong. The date is June 6, 1944. Normandy Beach. The largest amphibious invasion in human history is about to begin, and you're part of it whether you like it or not. Your name is Tommy Patterson, farm boy from Iowa, and 6 months ago you were worried about whether Sarah Jenkins would say yes to the county fair dance. Now you're worried about whether the next breath you take will be your last. The boat rocks violently, and someone behind you is praying in a language you don't recognize. Another man is crying. Nobody makes fun of him because half the boat is doing the same thing. You can hear it now, even over the sound of the diesel engines and the waves crashing against the hull. Machine gun fire. Distant at first, then closer. Then so close it sounds like hail on a tin roof. The guy next to you, his name is Robert Mitchell from Tennessee. He leans over and whispers that his wife just had a baby girl 3 weeks ago. He hasn't even seen her picture yet. You want to tell him it's going to be okay. You want to tell him you'll both make it home. But the ramp is starting to lower, and you can see the beach now. The first thing that hits you isn't the bullets. It's the noise. Everything you've ever heard about war, every movie, every story your grandfather told you about the trenches in the First War, none of it comes close to describing this sound. It's not just loud. It's a physical thing that crawls inside your chest and squeezes your heart until you think it might stop beating. The ramp drops completely, and suddenly you can see them. Bodies. Dozens of them. Floating in the water, caught on the beach obstacles, twisted in positions that don't look human anymore. The water isn't blue. It's red. Actually red. You thought that was just something people said, that blood in water turns pink or dilutes into nothing. But no. It's thick and dark, and there's so much of it that you can smell the iron even over the salt air. The man in front of you steps off the ramp and immediately disappears. Not falls. Disappears. Like he was never there. The water just swallows him whole, his pack too heavy, his legs tangled in underwater obstacles you can't see. Robert from Tennessee takes one step and his head snaps back. He's dead before his body hits the water. You haven't even left the boat yet, and already you understand. You're not going to make it. But here's where it gets worse. Because you have to choose. Right now, this second, do you run straight ahead into the machine gun fire that's been pre-sighted on this exact spot for weeks? Do you jump left into deep water where your 60-pound pack will drag you under in seconds? Do you stay on the ramp and use it as cover until a mortar shell turns it and everyone near it into shrapnel? There is no good option. That's the design. The Germans spent months fortifying this beach specifically to create a killing field where every single choice leads to death. The gun nests are positioned to create overlapping fields of fire. The obstacles in the water are placed at the exact depth where you can't swim over them, but can't walk around them. The mines are buried in patterns calculated to funnel you into predetermined kill zones. 20-year-old kids from Munich and Berlin who've never even seen the ocean before spent all winter turning this beach into a mathematical equation where you are the variable that gets eliminated. And the worst part? They're good at math. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. You're in the water now. Don't ask me how you got there, because honestly you don't remember. Your brain has shut off everything except the most basic instructions. Move forward. Don't stop. Breathe. The problem is breathing is getting harder because there's water in your nose and smoke in your lungs, and every few seconds something explodes close enough that the shockwave hits you like a punch to the chest. You can't hear anymore. Your eardrums ruptured sometime in the last 30 seconds, and now everything sounds like you're underwater even though your head is above the surface. You're screaming. You know you're screaming because you can feel your throat tearing, but you can't hear the sound. Nobody can hear you. Nobody's listening. The man next to you is trying to hold his intestines inside his body. Another one has no face. You step on something soft and realize it's someone's leg, just a leg, still wearing the boot. You keep moving because stopping means dying, and maybe if you just get to the beach, if you can just make it to the seawall, maybe there's cover there. Maybe you can breathe. Maybe you can think. Maybe you can stop seeing Robert Mitchell's face, frozen in that expression of surprise, like he couldn't believe this was really happening to him. You make it to the beach. Congratulations. You're one of the lucky ones. Out of the 36 men who were in your landing craft, 11 of you are still alive. That number will be down to 6 by nightfall. But right now, in this moment, pressed flat against the cold, wet sand with bullets snapping overhead and the smell of cordite and blood so thick you can taste it, you're alive. Your hands are digging into the sand like you're trying to burrow into the earth itself. Someone is screaming for a medic. Someone else is screaming for their mother. The officer who's supposed to be leading you is dead. The sergeant who took over after the officer died is also dead. There's a corporal somewhere to your left who might be in charge now, but he's 19 years old and crying so hard he can't speak. This is minute 27 of the invasion. You've been in combat for less than half an hour. You have 23.5 hours left to survive. Let's say you make it off the beach. Let's be generous and assume that somehow, through a combination of luck and the sheer statistical impossibility of every bullet finding a target, you survive Omaha Beach. The history books will call it a victory. They'll say the brave Allied forces overcame incredible odds to establish a foothold in Nazi-occupied Europe. They won't mention that 2,400 Americans died in 6 hours. They won't talk about how most of them drowned or bled out on the sand or died calling for their mothers in voices that got weaker and weaker until they just stopped. But you made it. You're inland now. You think the hard part is over. You're wrong again. The hedgerows of Normandy are 12 feet tall, thick as concrete, and older than America itself. They divide the French countryside into tiny, irregular fields that are absolutely perfect for defensive warfare. Every single field is a potential death trap. Every single hedge could be hiding a German machine gun position. The problem is you have to keep moving forward because that's what the orders say. So you and what's left of your unit, maybe 20 guys now, you stack up at the entrance to a field and somebody has to go first. That somebody is a kid named James Cooper from Michigan. He takes 3 steps into the field and the machine gun opens up from a position nobody saw. James Cooper from Michigan is cut in half. Literally in half. The bullets are so heavy, and there are so many of them that his body separates at the waist. You watch his legs take 2 more steps before they fall over. Now somebody else has to go into that field and find where that gun is firing from. That somebody is you. You're crawling through grass that smells like summer, like the fields back home where you used to catch fireflies with your little sister. Except these fields are full of things that want to kill you in ways you never imagined. The Germans didn't just plant mines in the obvious places. They planted them in the places where you naturally take cover. Behind trees, in ditches, under bodies. Yes, under bodies. Because they knew American soldiers would use their dead friends as cover when they planned for them. So now every corpse is a potential explosive device, and you have to make peace with the fact that you're going to hell, because you just pushed a dead man out of your way so you can keep crawling. You find the machine gun nest. It's 2 German soldiers, both of them younger than you, both of them terrified. One of them is wounded. He's holding his stomach and crying in German, saying words you don't understand, but that sound exactly like the words the American kid was saying on the beach this morning. You're supposed to take prisoners. That's what the Geneva Convention says. But your hands are shaking so hard you can barely hold your rifle. And these 2 kids just killed James Cooper from Michigan, and if you don't shoot them right now, they're going to shoot you. So you shoot them. Both of them. The wounded one dies slowly. You have to listen to it. That's day 1. Hour 12. You haven't eaten. You haven't slept. You've urinated on yourself twice because there was no time to stop, and you didn't even notice until later when your pants started chafing. You've killed 2 people. You've watched 3 men from your unit die in ways you'll spend the rest of your life trying to forget. And you still have 12 hours left. But let's talk about the things that kill you even slower than bullets. Let's talk about what happens when the fighting stops and you're sitting in a foxhole somewhere in France or Germany or Belgium, and it's 3 in the morning and everything is quiet. That's when the real enemy shows up. Not the Germans, not the Japanese. The enemy is your own body starting to eat itself from the inside out. Trench foot. That's what killed more soldiers in World War I than poison gas. It's what's going to kill you in World War II if the bullets don't get you first. Your feet have been wet for 3 days straight. You can't remember the last time you took your boots off because taking your boots off means being vulnerable, and being vulnerable means being dead. So you keep them on. And the skin on your feet starts to die. First it goes numb, then it turns white, then it turns black, then it falls off. You've seen guys lose all 10 toes to trench foot. You've seen guys lose the whole foot. Gangrene sets in, and then they're shipping you home minus a leg, and everyone will thank you for your service, but nobody's going to hire a one-legged farm boy from Iowa. So you keep your boots on, and you try not to think about what's happening inside them. Then there's the food, or the lack of it. Your K rations were supposed to last 3 days, but you ate them all in the first 24 hours because you were so hungry and scared that you couldn't stop eating. Now you're out of food, and the supply lines are cut because some German tank unit broke through somewhere, and now you're surrounded and nobody's coming. So you eat what you can find. You eat grass. You eat roots. You eat things you find in abandoned German positions that might be food or might be poison, and you won't know until 6 hours later when your stomach decides whether to digest it or reject it. There's a guy in your unit who ate a mushroom he found growing on a tree. He was dead in 4 hours, vomiting blood, convulsing, begging someone to shoot him because the pain was so bad. Nobody did. You all just watched him die because what else could you do? You don't have morphine. The medic died on the beach. Speaking of the medic, let's talk about what happens when you get wounded. Not killed, wounded. Because getting killed is easy. Getting killed is fast. Getting wounded means you might live long enough to die slowly. You take a piece of shrapnel in your leg. It's not a big piece. Maybe the size of your thumbnail. But it's hot and it's dirty and it buries itself deep in the muscle. You try to pull it out, but you can't reach it and nobody else wants to dig around in your leg with dirty fingers because that's how infections start. So you wrap it with a bandage that was cleaned 3 days ago, but now is just a filthy rag you found in a dead man's pack. The wound gets infected. Of course it does. Everything gets infected. Your body temperature starts to rise. You're shivering even though it's summer. The infection spreads up your leg, and you can see the red lines creeping toward your groin. If those lines reach your torso, you're dead. Blood poisoning, sepsis. You'll be dead in 24 hours, and it will be agonizing. The only treatment is amputation. Cut the leg off before the infection spreads. But there's no surgeon here. There's just a 20-year-old kid from Philadelphia who was pre-med before the war, and he's got a hacksaw and a leather belt for you to bite down on. No anesthetic, no painkillers, just you and the song and the screaming. You survived the amputation, somehow. But now you're a one-legged man in the middle of a war zone, and you can't walk, and you can't fight, and you're just dead weight. The unit has to keep moving. They can't carry you. They barely have enough guys left to carry their own weapons. So they leave you. They prop you up against a tree with a rifle and 2 magazines, and they promise they'll send someone back for you. They won't. They can't. You know they can't. So you sit there against that tree and you wait. Maybe the Americans will advance this way and find you. Maybe the Germans will find you first. Maybe nobody will find you, and you'll just sit here until the infection finishes what the shrapnel started. You think about home. You think about Sarah Jenkins and whether she waited for you. You think about your mother and the last letter you wrote her where you lied and said everything was fine. You think about all the things you'll never do. Never get married. Never have kids. Never see Iowa again. Never eat your mom's apple pie. Never sleep in a bed that doesn't smell like death. You're 22 years old, and you're going to die alone in a forest in France, and nobody will even know where to bury you. But let's say none of that happens. Let's say you're incredibly lucky. You don't get shot. You don't get blown up. You don't get infected. You don't lose any limbs. You make it through Normandy, through France, through Belgium, through the Ardennes forest in the middle of winter during the Battle of the Bulge where the temperature drops to -20 degrees and guys are freezing to death in their foxholes. You make it all the way to Germany. You're there when the camps are liberated. You see Dachau. You see Buchenwald. You see things that human beings did to other human beings, and you understand that you're never going to be the same person you were when you left Iowa. Something inside you broke, and it's never going to heal. But you survived. You made it. The war ends. You go home. And that's when you realize the war never ended. It just moved inside your head. You can't sleep anymore without seeing Robert Mitchell's face. You can't eat without tasting blood. You can't hear fireworks without hitting the ground. You can't be in crowds because everyone might be an enemy. You can't trust anyone because the last time you trusted someone they got you surrounded in a hedgerow and half your unit died. Your wife doesn't understand why you wake up screaming. Your kids don't understand why daddy doesn't like to play. Your boss doesn't understand why you can't focus on inventory reports when 6 years ago you were making life and death decisions every 8 seconds. They call it shell shock, battle fatigue, nostalgia. They don't call it what it is, which is your brain trying to process things brains were never meant to process. And there's no treatment for it. No therapy, no medication. Just you and the nightmares and the bottle you keep in the garage and the slow realization that maybe you didn't survive after all. Maybe you died on that beach, and this is just your ghost going through the motions. Here's what the history textbooks won't tell you. Here's what the documentaries leave out. World War II killed 85 million people. 85 million. That number is so big it stops meaning anything. So let's make it smaller. Let's make it personal. Every single one of those 85 million people was somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's father, somebody's husband. Every single one of them had a name and a face and dreams about what they were going to do after the war. Every single one of them thought they were going to survive right up until the moment they didn't. And the ones who did survive, the ones who made it home, most of them spent the rest of their lives wishing they hadn't. Because survival isn't the same thing as living. And coming home isn't the same thing as being home. You want to know why you wouldn't survive 24 hours in World War II? It's not because you're not brave enough. It's not because you're not strong enough. It's because World War II wasn't designed for survival. It was designed for death. Industrial scale, mechanized, efficient death. The machines that killed you were invented by the smartest minds in the world and refined over years of warfare until they achieved near-perfect lethality. The tactics that killed you were developed by generals who'd spent their entire careers studying how to kill the maximum number of people in the minimum amount of time. The systems that killed you were backed by economies that produced bullets faster than you could fire them and bombs faster than you could dodge them. You were one person, one fragile human body made of meat and bone and hope. And you were going up against the combined industrial might of nations that had turned murder into a science. The 8 seconds I mentioned at the beginning? That wasn't hyperbole. That was real. Multiple studies done after the war showed that the average soldier in combat had approximately 8 seconds to assess a threat, make a decision, and act on it before they were killed or the opportunity passed. 8 seconds. Count them right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In that time, you have to identify where the enemy is, where your cover is, where your squad mates are, what weapons are being used against you, what the terrain looks like, what your orders are, and what your next move should be. And you have to do all of that while people are shooting at you and explosions are going off and your ears are ringing and your hands are shaking and your brain is screaming at you to run. 8 seconds. And if you get it wrong, if you hesitate, if you freeze, if you choose the wrong option, you die. Simple as that. No second chances. No do-overs. Just death. The soldiers who survived World War II, the ones who made it through Normandy and the Battle of the Bulge and the liberation of the camps, they didn't call themselves heroes. Ask any of them, and they'll tell you the same thing. The heroes are the ones who didn't come home. The heroes are Robert Mitchell from Tennessee, who never got to meet his daughter. The heroes are James Cooper from Michigan, who got cut in half in a French hedgerow. The heroes are the guys whose names ended up on memorials in small towns across America. Guys who were 19 and 20 and 21 years old and never got the chance to figure out who they were supposed to be. The survivors? They just call themselves lucky. They happened to be standing 3 feet to the left when the shell landed. They happened to draw the second wave instead of the first. They happened to get assigned to a unit that saw light combat instead of heavy. They survived because of randomness, because of chance, because of luck, not because they were better soldiers or braver men. Just because the universe randomly decided they got to live and someone else had to die. So when I tell you that you wouldn't survive 24 hours in World War II, I'm not insulting you. I'm not questioning your courage or your strength or your character. I'm just telling you the truth. The same truth that 85 million people learned too late. War isn't about heroism. It's not about glory. It's not about defeating evil or defending freedom or any of the other things they tell you to get you to enlist. War is about math. Cold, brutal, indifferent math. And the math of World War II says that if you were there, if you stepped off that landing craft onto Omaha Beach or parachuted into Normandy or fought your way through the Hedgerows or survived the winter in the Ardennes, the math says you probably died. Not definitely, not certainly, but probably. And even if you didn't die, even if you were one of the lucky ones who made it home, the math says that a piece of you died anyway. The piece that knew how to sleep without nightmares. The piece that could hear loud noises without flinching. The piece that remembered what it felt like to be happy. That's why you wouldn't survive 24 hours in World War II. Not because the war would kill your body, although it probably would, but because it would definitely kill everything that made you who you are. And maybe that's a worse fate than dying on the beach. At least on the beach it's quick. At least on the beach, you don't have to spend the next 50 years trying to forget what you saw, trying to forget what you did, trying to forget who you were before the war turned you into someone you don't recognize anymore. The soldiers who came home from World War II, they brought the war home with them. In their heads, in their hearts, in the way they couldn't look their children in the eye, in the way they drank alone in the garage, in the way they woke up screaming from dreams they couldn't explain. They survived the war, but the war never stopped. It just changed location. From the beaches of Normandy to the suburbs of America. From the trenches of Europe to the dinner tables of Iowa and Tennessee and Michigan. The war followed them home, and it never left. And that's the real answer to why you wouldn't survive 24 hours in World War II. Because survival was never really an option. Only dying fast or dying slow. And lucky you, you gotta choose which one.